Now, if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you'll no doubt have heard a number of snippets of the Cambridge local radio station Star Radio.
This is the sound of the city.
Cambridge's Star Radio.
Now, Star is one of the few remaining truly local commercial radio stations in this country, really. Although commercial local radio, known in this country as independent local radio, was introduced in the 1970s, Cambridge didn't actually get a local commercial radio station until 1989. This wasn't Star Radio, this was a station called CNFM, which stood for Cambridge and Newmarket FM. By the way, if you were going to Google that, make sure you put radio on the end of it, otherwise you'll get some rather disturbing results, and given the age profile of this channel, I don't want to cause any medical emergencies.
All-time classic from the Beatles. Hello, goodbye. Definitely a case of hello today. This is CNFM 103, live from the Vision Park in Cambridge, and reaching out to Huntingdon, St Ives, Ely, Newmarket, Saffron Walden, Royston, St Neots, and your town and village on 103 FM.
You can almost hear the voice of Alan Partridge now, can't you?
We'll be giving you the chance to win £103 every Sunday morning.
Well, that was a lot of money to spend in Cambridge in those days, wasn't it? It should almost get you a day's parking in the Grand Arcade and a peak and pie in Gales now. A few years later than that, CNFM was renamed to Q103, but nowadays it doesn't exist as an independent radio station. It was taken over by Global Media Group, and it's now part of the Heart network, which is about the biggest commercial grouping of stations in the UK. Star was really originally a community station, didn't start until the late 1990s, and it's gone through a few name changes. Originally Cambridge Cafe Radio, then Cambridge Red, then The Eagle. Yeah, me neither. But eventually ended up as Star Radio. But its fate, it was announced a couple of weeks ago, is going to be the same as Q103, in that it is being bought by Bauer Media, and it will be, instead of an independent local radio station, will be a feed of their national hits radio network. You won't see anything about that on their website, though, at the moment. In fact, it doesn't even make a story of higher priority than the Huntingdon Tuner Robber. I will miss Star Radio. When I used to drive into and out of Cambridge in the mornings a couple of years ago, I used to find that their traffic information was better than most of the others. Their music mix was fine for me, and I loved some of their locally produced adverts, some of which must have cost up to £8.95.
For friendly expert advice, call Cambridge 867373 or visit legacy-matters.co.uk.
That's our solicitor. I hope he's not a viewer of this channel. I don't want him to put his fees up next time now that I've ripped into his production values. Really what we're seeing here is the final act of the consolidation of commercial radio in this country, and this started, I think, around 15 years ago, and we now have two big media groups, Global and Bauer, and they have absorbed pretty much all of the 100 or so commercial radio stations in this country and folded them into a small number of networks. So you've got Heart, Greatest Hits, Smooth, Capital. There are a few others, but those are the big ones. Now, when they acquired all these stations, the licenses that they acquired with them were still local licenses. So they had to at least keep up the pretense of regional programming. I think they had to do like 2 or 3 hours every weekday, but that was quite a light burden, and even that got abolished last year in 2024 by the Media Act. And neither group wasted any time in taking advantage of this. Bauer removed their one regional show, which was the weekday afternoon slot, in October 2024, and then in January this year, Global said that all the regional branding of the Heart and Smooth and Capital networks is going to end in February. So effectively these are now national franchises. Now, I think Star Radio were not helped really when Bauer removed KISS from FM in this area a couple of years ago and replaced it with Greatest Hits Radio, which they did just after the big coup of getting Ken Bruce from Radio 2. Now, at the time, Star complained to Ofcom that, Bauer treading on our patch, but Ofcom really don't do anything about groups like Bauer or even the BBC. They only pick on small broadcasters. So they said, no, nothing to see here, please move on. And I think really that was the final nail in the coffin for Star. Should we be too worried about this? You see, I don't really think we should. I think Star has good and bad points, but I think it's a bit of a museum piece. It's like a simulation of a 1980s ILR station. Let's be fair, it took 15 years for anybody to consider even creating a commercial radio station in Cambridge. And we've had 2 different stations, 2 attempts for one of them, 3 for the other. It's taken, 35 years? None of these attempts has ever been able to make money out of it, which sort of suggests that, it wasn't really ever worth it in the first place. I think really, if you ask me, which of course nobody does, but if you ask me, commercial radio should have been national from the start in this country in the 1970s. But the BBC were very angry about the idea of having commercial radio at all, and I think they were very effective at lobbying the government of the time and saying, we need to balkanise this so it doesn't affect radios 1 and 2. But in the end, this sort of regulatory plan has collided with reality. And as usual, reality wins, although, bureaucrats don't give way quickly. So it's taken 50 years for that to actually happen. One thing I find interesting about it, though, is that I can't quite see what Bauer are getting from acquiring Star Radio. In terms of their listenership, they've been steady at about 35,000 listeners out of a service area population of about 500,000, and that's been the case, as far as I can see, for about 3 or 4 years. Hits Radio, which is what they're replacing it with, that's already available on DAB in this area, and so you'd have thought most people who wanted to listen to it could hear it already, even if they weren't listening on smart speakers or the internet or the app or whatever. So the only additional listeners they're going to get are the ones that Star have on their FM service, which is obviously a smaller number than the total of 35,000. I don't know what the split between formats is for Star. So, but it does fit in with what they did with Greatest Hits Radio and Kiss. So it seems to me that Bauer still think there's some value in analogue radio, even though we're always being told that it's dead and not quite yet buried. So, goodbye Star, goodbye shonky adverts, goodbye news about tin fish robberies and roadworks on the A1134. Now, I have to say music on Hits Radio isn't really my sort of taste, so I won't be a regular listener to it, but that frequency, 100.7 FM from the Madingley transmitter, still a strong signal in this area, and it's quite useful for testing the old radios. And even those old hackers that only go up to 101 megahertz, just in case you were trying to listen to the Rozzers in the 1960s chasing you around in their Austin Cambridges, they can still pick up 100.7. So you'll still be hearing the odd snip of Hits Radio now on this channel. Anyway, hope you found all that interesting. See you on the next one.